Hello and welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here to continue our build on the freight house, so stay tuned. So welcome back to the freight house build. I am Mark Stewart, your favorite Pharaoh equestrianologist, and we're here to continue our build on the freight house like I had said. We've got several things to continue on with working. We're still trying to get all the supports and underneath the eaves of the roofs of the main building finished. We were starting to work on that platform for the door on the second story of the one end, and there's just a bunch of things that we need to get into. So without holding you up any further, let's just jump right into all this. The first thing I want to do is just come back and show you I did finish all the supports for underneath the eaves. I did leave this top of this end open. We've got some work to do on this end in this video, but all these are done all the way around, so I'm going to come back and spend some time painting those. Now the sides, remember, are supported by these uprights too, so we're going to have to come back and add those in. So where the cross member is underneath all those supports, I went ahead and glued that in place, and then came back and started gluing or painting the black underneath everything, and leaving some of the places still raw plastic because some other parts get glued down into that, and if I paint them, the glue is just not going to adhere as well. So we're going to start working on this end of the building, and you can see this whole eave is enclosed on this one end down here. So we're going to get started on that. Now there's four upper support brackets that come out and support that whole eave at the end. So I'm cutting the two and putting them in place on either side of where that enclosed area at the peak will be, and that'll form the outside edges of where that will be. Then there's a flat piece of lumber that goes as a floor kind of underneath the bottom of that. So I'm cutting this and then coming back and gluing it underneath those two support beams that I just put in a minute ago, and then I put a trim board on either side of that just to give it better adhesion. And then I'm using this manila envelope here and just cutting a piece out and taking a knife on its upside down and scribing boards in this, and then cutting two triangle pieces. One here you see installed on one side, then I come back and cut the one for the other side, and then I pull it and glue it into place. The trim board is across the lower front edge at this point, and that encloses that whole end. Now there's some long trim pieces here that I'm going to come back and add into some things, and this is just the rough cut piece that I'm starting with. And I cut two pieces to form that upright piece that's right in the middle of that eave. This is a really thick, like 6x6 beam in there, but I'm going to build it up in layers. So I cut one little piece that sits back in that open triangle area on the face of the manila envelopes, and then another piece on the front of that, a small piece behind that overlaps the back side. Then I just have a little round piece that I put down on the very bottom of that to finish that off. Now on the outer edges of this, there's two more support beams out near the corner of the building. So I just cut these like I did the previous two that was on that enclosed eaved area, and come back and glue those in place in the center of the columns and the brick down below. Now underneath of these that mount flat to the brick wall are four upright supports. So I'm coming back and cutting those and then pre-painting them black and then gluing them into place. So now both sides of the angle are there to come back and add these molded upright supports. Remember, I molded these way back in an earlier video of this series. I gotta come back and clean them up a little bit with some files. My molds aren't the best in the world, so once I get them cleaned up, I just come back and glue those in place between both those two boards I just put on the building, and then come back and paint everything black, and pretty much the whole roof supports and end of this part of the building back here is pretty much done at this point, and we can move on to something else. So we're on a roll. Now, in the last video I did, I also had started to make all these landings for the back side of this building. And you see there are two platforms with stairs in between, handrails, and you know, just a way to come off that bridge and enter into the second floor of this building. So now we're going to come back and just work on putting all this together. And you know, I had started these supports before, but we have these four brackets to put on across the tops of these to form them into a landing. So first I just come back and use my 90-degree angle and put one on the base of them so I can make sure everything is good and square, and then come back and mount the other three to them and glue them to them as well. And you know, I'd left the back side of this wood exposed because it's the side that meets the building. Now, for a grade on it, I really couldn't find anything in my parts, so what I'm going to do is use this fabric here for grading on top, and I just set these upside down on it and glue them directly to that. And then, you know, I wanted a way to cover the edges, so I'm coming back with this styrene. It's just tiny little square styrene, and I'm going to just mount that as an edge all the way around the outside of that. It will help adhere that fabric to the deck, as well as giving it a nice clean looking edge to it as well. And then I come back and paint all that, and you know, basically the platform assemblies themselves are together at this point. So then we can come back and glue them to the back side of the building. And for the height of the taller one, I just kind of judged off one of the pictures about how high to put that. Now in between them, for the stairway, I'm going to use this pre-made stairway kits from Evergreen Scale Styrenes. And I come back and I held a piece up in place and measured the treads and cut these two side boards and got the 6 pieces for the center of that, and then just glued it all together. I did mount a small board down on the facing of it to glue it to the other piece, but basically that's about it for the stairs. Now we're ready to mount them into place. And after I put a little bit of paint on them, I go ahead and glue them in between the two landings. Now we still have some handrails and a little bit of other work to do here, but basically that's the end of that. Now another thing I want to come back and do is add these bumpers outside the doors. This would have protected the concrete and brick when cars backed up to the building. So I go through my wood box and find this piece of wooden dowel here to, well, not dowel, but square material to cut them out of. And I go ahead and cut them, and I paint all the sides except for the side that will mount back to the brick. And there's 4 of them because the one side of the building has 3, and then the one end also does not have blocks. So I went ahead and after I painted these, went ahead and glued them into place. And here's just a kind of around the building shot of how the building stands here as we finish out this video. Still got some paint touch up to do. I really need to come back and touch brick paint and everything on the whole building. But basically, you know, the majority of everything is kind of done. I mean, there's a lot of little stuff to come back and touch up and fix, but we're ready to start working on the platforms at this point. Now, one thing I do every once in a while is show some odd tools. I use all kinds of things for clamps, and I do use regular clothespins for clamps as well, but this is just a neat trick. And if you reverse the spring on the 2 wooden pieces, then you get the long flat ends of the handle that act as your clamp, and it's just another good tool to throw into your repertoire of things to use. So there you have another segment of Stu Structures. Trying to get back on track with things. My life is starting to slow down. I've got my nursery pretty well moved. I mean, I've got a lot of work to do on it in this end situation. It's temporary for a couple years where I have to move it all again. But anyway, trying to get everything ready for winter, and winter is here. Got our first, major, well, no, it's not major snow, but at least a ground covering. White powder this morning, a little over an inch probably, and the temperatures are extremely cold. So it's given me this day. I just decided to take the day and work on the freight house and get some things done. Hopefully tomorrow will be a few degrees warmer. Maybe I can get outside and do some work, but let's get caught up and get some work done on this. I've already got this segment finished, and we'll continue on with it a little further and see how far we can go. We have all those platforms to build. build and several more things to continue on with this building. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just make that stone wall behind it and all the paving coming down into it, which was stone and paving stones, and just go ahead and make maybe a miniature diorama out of this building in the scene that it would have sat in, because there's some terrain to the ground, and I would like to build the platforms to match that terrain. And I think it would be easier later on, and easier as I'm building this building now, to just go ahead and kind of build a mini diorama to set this on, and get a whole little mini scene maybe put together with this. So anyway, stay tuned for the next video in the series. It should start coming together fairly quickly now. It's going to take some time to work on all those platforms, but it should start coming together fairly quickly now. The main parts of the building are getting there real quick. So in any case, thank you for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it. I hope maybe some of my tricks and things that I try, I do a lot by trial and error, and on learning on the fly as I go. So anyway, out there you've just got to find the things that work for you. None of this is really hard. It's just, you just need to jump out there and scratch, build some buildings, and play with your trains. Wintertime is here. That's more of a train time of year. So I'm hoping all of you are enjoying some of your trains, and jump out there and do some scratch building. In any case, thanks once again. Like and subscribe to my channel. Hit the little bell and you'll be notified when a new video comes out down below. And enjoy the winter. Happy model railroading.